Logos is the icon of the Father, and man is the icon of God. We are the image of God. Dyer wave
3.
What's up, y'all? Welcome. Another open forum. We know how much we love those open forums. It's literally the equivalent of 1-900 numbers. It's 976 fun. It's 1-900 ASMR. It's me breathing at you the way you want to be breathed at and upon. Loving it down here in shivering cold Florida. It's a lot of fun to be down here in shivering cold Florida, and love going to the shrine of St. Photius in St. Augustine, one of my favorite little nooks in the crannies of the downtown pirate city. Yes, it is literal downtown pirate city. It's Jack Sparrow town. It's egregious, but we love it. It's fun. But it's not warm. And that was, we were hoping for more than that. I'm enjoying this Airbnb because Airbnbs always have the same DVDs. Have you noticed it? It's like the tamest, funnest, ridiculousest collections of DVDs. For example, I probably have seen Cuba Gooding as a slow boy in radio at 5 Airbnbs. We all love those slow boy performances, especially when it's Cuba Gooding. I'm going to go ahead and bet that this is not a millennial-owned Airbnb with the tribute to Reagan DVDs, which Jamie and I watched on repeat for about 4 hours last night. And we wept. I'm not gonna lie, I wept. I missed the good old days of Reagan at the UN saying, "Get ready for the alien invasion." The Notebook. We know all the ladies love The Notebook. I watch it as well. Actually, I have a signed poster of Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams' Notebook hanging up in my powder room. Secondhand Lions, always an Airbnb favorite. Got to have those family flicks. We got to have our Michael Caine and our Haley Joel Osment. I mean, got to have the Michael Caine. Happy Feet. Pretty much seen this at every Airbnb. Never watched it. Don't know anything about it. Anything with CGI dancing animals, I'm not going to even think about it. I know that a lot of you slow boys out there, that's your thing. That's fine. You can do that. That's your thing. I'm more of a Ronald Reagan notebook, Cuba Gooding slow boy man myself. That's more my speed. I'm into that masculine stuff, right? Anything with Ryan Gosling, anything with Channing Tatum, anything with RuPaul. That's where I'm at, bro. All right, so we have open forum tonight, as you beloved people know. And when it's open forum, that means on Twitter now. Remember, open forum on Twitter is a whole other animal. This is a beast of its own. And this is like the way that Discord used to be back like 3 years ago when we started it up. Remember when it was just madness? It was haywire. It was primal chaos where we would have just atheists like foaming at the mouth, literally just licking their saliva and spit to get in there. Calvinists just yelling and freaking out, fainting, falling over. Madness. And then Discord became its own thing where it primarily became a discussion forum for converting to Orthodoxy. And that's fine. It's great. But sometimes I like the madness that is the unknown world of Twitter Spaces. And so this is basically Twitter's version of what Discord kind of is. And you can just talk. But you have to send me a request. So we've opened it up to everybody on Twitter. And I'm sure you guys can hear me. So the way it works is that you have to request to speak. Because there's too many people pile in. It pops up so that anybody can pop on. And as you know, we've had some gold comedy already. We've had Decarion Eckelberg, who said he was God, and his proof that he was God was that he has a picture of himself on his Twitter PFP, and ain't nobody got a picture of God, so therefore he's God. I'm not joking. I think that guy was being serious. People say, no, he's trolling. No, I think that dude is being serious. I will give him 1 point for uniqueness, and then minus 50 points for blasphemy. But so the way this works is that it's open forum. If you want to challenge me, if you want to put me in my place, if you want to expose me, if you want to debate the issues, if you want to make an argument, if you would like to have the floor to ask me to do heavy breathing ASMR into your ear, it's what you guys want tonight. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the last week's attempt. We made an attempt at some kind of video or live stream every night. I did it almost every day except for one. I was just too tired. And then on top of that, hopefully you enjoyed the 3 different live streams that we did about the Vatican, papacy, and papal claims. So we did 3 pretty good live streams, and hopefully you enjoyed the, lengthy one that we did, which is the first half of this book, 2 Paths by Michael Welton, and the second half of that will be available in the next few days. So I try to pack in as much as I can when I'm on the road, but I got a lot of ASMR gigs down here, right? Everybody knows I'm a traveling erotic ASMR performer. I got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of clubs to go to, to breathe in the microphone before a crowd of heavy panting people takes it out of me, honestly. So, people wonder what I do on the side. Why am I down here in Florida? It's a lot of erotic ASMR gigs where I breathe into microphones. And live, I do it live. And it's kind of replaced, as we said, 1-900 numbers. So that's what I've been doing, kind of like a side gig. Just kidding. We came here for church. It's a churchcation. So everybody in the chat on YouTube, thank you guys for being here. If you would hit like and share. And if you want to support the stream and the show, you can do so by the Streamlabs link there. Streamlabs is how we do super chats nowadays, given this climate. today's climate of soft people everywhere. And we got a nice little crowd over here on Twitter Spaces. We got, how many people in there? We already got 33 people in there. And usually we get people just piling on, ready to talk. Right? Now, if you want to talk, what you got to do is push the button and request to speak. And then I will let you on. You'll be on the air. You're on air. And then you can put me in my place. Like, I always give people the chance. You can just have the floor, dude. You can run this thing. Right? We'll put this city on lockdown. You can run it. And you can expose me. You can do arguments. You can do your apologetic. I will be your whipping baby. I don't even know what that is. Is that a thing? A whipping baby? There's a whipping pole. Is there a whipping baby? There should be. Nobody ever wants to debate anymore. This is a new world. We like I said, we beat all the bosses. There's no more final bosses. I think there's a Gnostic dude that wants to debate that's coming up on what is that channel? So Mike Cernovich and Styx were just over on this channel. Crap, I just forgot the name of it. I'm not trying to be mean to you, bro. I forgot the name of your channel. Break the Rules. Break the Rules says, will you come debate? I don't even know what it means, but it sounds like Joe Atwell stuff. It sounds like the Roman families corrupted Christianity, right? The Caesar's Messiah type stuff. I don't know that that's what this dude believes, but they were like, will you come have a back and forth with this dude? We've had many requests for this goofy view to be refuted, which is so easy to refute that, I mean, it won't even require really any preparation. So I was like, yeah, okay, sure. I'll come do that. Because I was kind of taking a break from debates. We did so many debates in the last 2 years, and they just really devolved into basically no one left to debate. And people are like, well, would you debate Mr. Green? I'm like, that dude is not a serious debater. Why would I debate a dude that has no training in anything at all remotely relevant to anything that we discuss, but I'm supposed to debate that? And if I don't, it's because I'm scared. Really? Come on, man. He would be like the fourth pagan, neo-pagan that we've already debated that would just bring forth all the same stupid neo-pagan relativistic arguments. So go listen to the Boglord Dave debate. Go listen to the, who was that other dude? Mark Brahman debate. And you're just going to get the same thing that would be if I debated Mr. Green. Sounds like Bond villains. Aha! Why won't you debate Mr. Green, Mr. Dyer, Mr. White, and Mr. Pink? Are also ready to squash you in a debate, Mr. Dyer. It's like Bond villains, right? Okay, so we got our first requester. Who is this person? All we have is something. I can't see the rest of it. But you're on the air, all we have. All we have is now. Every time I do Lord Voldemort's voice, I start coughing. How does he do it? All we have, are you there? You have the floor. You better mop it up. You have the floor. You better mop it. Boom. I just janitored that dude. Bro, are you there? Ooh, I hear a little breathing. I hear a little ASMR coming out of you. That's getting me a little excited. Are you there, bro? So his microphone is on, and he's just kind of like huffing in the background. So maybe he came for that ASMR stuff, didn't you? Is that what you came for, dude? You know that was a joke. You just got outed for your fetishes, bro. I'm just playing around, dude. Are you there? Dude, I can hear you doing stuff. Are you just ASMR Are you in an ASMR rapture right now with my voice? Dude, I can hear you there. All right, we're going to boot this dude. You're not going to talk, I'm going to boot you, bro. All right, you're out of here, dude. Goodbye. See, he really thought it was an ASMR thing. He was like, I found it. I found the secret Twitter spaces where it's all ASMR all the time. And then it was like, no, this is actually just somebody arguing about boring religious stuff. So, sorry, dude. What is 2021? I mean, no, what year is this? 2022. What's it going to bring, y'all? Are we at the end of history, the end of the world? I don't know. Here we got a new one. Now is Shaolin. Shaolin. Is that an MMA thing? Shaolin. Do you study the Shaolin in MMA?
Hey, Jay, I don't know if you can hear me, but I think you're muted.
Where are we muted? On YouTube or in here? Oh, I know what it is. This happened last time on these stupid Twitter spaces. Dang it. I think last time I made this mistake. It was just, it screwed everything up, dude. It just screwed everything. Now the thing doesn't even show up. Bruh. My Twitter just crashed, dude. It just crashed. Dang it. See, everything was fine. Twitter was great before. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's what it is. So this happened last time. Let's see if it'll let me reconnect. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. It's not going to work. So when this does this, you have to just restart the space. So I'm going to restart it. And you're going to have to get... I'm going to literally repeat everything that I just said for 20 minutes. So hope you enjoy that. Psych. Debating God, bro. Debating God, bro. I'm going to title it that. Debating God, bro. Catholics. Prots. Atheist. There we go. All right, now I got to share it because nobody will come in here unless I share it. New fixed debate here. There we go. Y'all just pile into the new room. Don't worry, you're going to get all the same erotic ASMR that you already got in the other one. No different. It's going to be just as hot, just as steamy. I got to delete the old one or people get confused. There we go. Okay. There you go, guys. Just pile into the new one there. Debating God, bruh. There we go. What's up, Chase Haggard? Beautiful sister of Tristana. Two of the top, probably the top 5 internet divas of all time. At all, period. At least top 10. So... let me have to fix this stupid ass tweet again. What did everybody get for Christmas? By the way, if you're Orthodox, you get 2 Christmases. And by the way, my birthday is early, so I actually get 3. So I get Western Christmas, which is Coca-Cola Santa Claus. Then we get Orthodox Christmas in early January, which is real Christmas. And then we get personal Christmas, which is my birthday. So if you want, super chats can come to me for my birthday right now, because my birthday is literally coming up. You don't need to know when. All right. Apologize to the previous people who were thirsty for my ASMR. It's all fixed. You can hear me now, hopefully. And because it's my birthday, we're gonna do it's the special birthday grift. So super chat at me. We already got one bro there with them super chats via Streamlabs, and we'll just call it the birthday grift. Happy birthday grifting. Happy birthday grifting. Happy birthday grifting. Send me your Bitcoin. What's up, nerds? Shout out to everybody. Okay, so welcome back in the normal room. Everything's good. Everything's fixed. Just hit the request button. I'm sorry to the last two people. This happened the last time on Twitter Spaces, where you have to go in and change the settings to make the microphone work. Anyway, so it's working now. Come back. I'm sorry I made fun of you. Please don't leave. Come back. I'll never make fun of anyone again, ever. So I posted this video on TikTok, which is probably shouldn't even be on TikTok. It's so ridiculous, and it started getting, the first time I had a stupid clip promoted in the algorithm, it started getting like thousands of views within the last couple minutes. And the debunkers piled in. Oh my gosh, dude, the debunkers are like, where do these people come from? Like, imagine being so enmeshed in normedom that you got to go into the comments of TikTok videos to debunk, and you're doing it for like hours. I mean, are these government paid people that are like, what are you doing with your life? Trying to debunk publicly validated programs. It's just crazy. Anyway. All right. We got Harambe. What's up, Harambe? Chilling at that zoo up in the sky. He's up in that celestial zoo. We got Harambe coming on.
Yo, bro, can you hear me?
Yeah, man, I can hear you. What's up, Harambe? How's that zoo coming out?
Yo, that's amazing. Wait, dude, I'm actually a pretty big fan, though. Like, it's actually Jay Dyer I'm talking to right now.
No, it's his evil, homoerotic ASMR doppelganger, not the real Jay Dyer.
Yo, that's crazy, dude. I've listened to probably dozens of hours of your debates and shit.
Oh,
it's pretty epic.
Thanks, man. Welcome. Did you have a topic or a question or a thing you want to discuss or something you want to set me straight on? You want to fight?
No, but honestly, I think wait. No, I just wanna can you just summarize really quickly why Orthodoxy is why you think that is the true form of Christianity?
Yeah, so the easiest summary, I guess, would be that when we look at the first several centuries of the church, the first 1,000 years of the church, that's the undivided East-West church, right? That whether you're Orthodox or Catholic, everybody kind of agrees that it's that one church for roughly the first 7 councils of the first 1,000 years. So when we understand how they practice Christianity and we look at the councils, we look at the canons of the councils, we can see that that is the Christianity of those centuries. And in essence, it doesn't change. So the faith that the apostles handed down is essentially the same thing that's being stated and explicated and solidified and clarified for the next seven centuries. So that is that's one way to know between, say, Orthodoxy and Catholicism, which is the true church. But if you mean the true religion at all, I would say that Orthodox Christianity is the fulfillment of a lot of the Old Testament prophecies. So you get prophecies about Jesus, when he would be born, under what conditions, under what empire, what would transpire, what he would do, his life, his death, his ministry, his resurrection. Dozens and dozens and dozens of places in the Old Testament that Christ fulfills those. So that's one proof. And then I would say that in regard to other world religions kind of have fundamental problems in their epistemology and in their metaphysics that negates them as being religions which can ground the possibility of knowledge at all. So that would be like the transcendental argument. So those are some of the reasons why I would say Orthodox Christianity is the true religion.
Okay, because like I always found it weird because you know, like if you actually look the you know, the history and like the, you know, time period, it's kind of like yeah, it's because the Catholic Church actually, that was the divergent, right? Like they diverged from like, you know, the unchanging kind of, you know, Orthodox way, right?
Yeah, that's our view for
That's
sure.
how it actually works. Yeah. But also like, right, like today I found a pretty interesting like take. You know, like what is it? Like so there's some principles that like are shared with all like world religions, kind of. And like, why did God like not send message that could be like accessed by the whole entire world population, like, and not only like, you know, kind of Europe, North Africa, and like West Asia, you know, with Christianity.
Well, so if you're talking about like during the period of the Old Testament when God called the nation of Israel, the Orthodox view is that all of those people who died before Christ came, they weren't necessarily deprived of the gospel because Christ preached the gospel in Hades. This is what Peter mentions, that Christ went into the realm of the dead and preached the gospel. So St. Cyril of Alexandria says even the dead had the possibility of hearing the message of Christ, right? But the people that died in the Old Testament. So there's some means by which God can reach everybody, but it's not because of false religions, or God doesn't like use every false religion as a means of salvation. There's elements of truths in all the world religions which we would call,
yeah, exactly.
But so that would be the seeds of the logos, or the early church fathers called that the logos spermatikoi. But they point to Christ, but the problem is that they're mixed up with a lot of error and superstition. So the fullness of revelation comes in the apostolic deposit, what the apostles handed down as the Christian, the full revelation, both in scripture and tradition.
Okay. Yeah, dude, I gotta go, bro. Like, yeah, bro, you're amazing, bro. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate that. God bless you.
Thank you. You too, bud.
Yeah, man. So let's see. Modern Thinker wants to speak. Modern Thinker. That sounds like a liberal. Sounds like a liberal. What's up, Modern Thinker? You gonna roast me? You may roast me if you would like. Modern Thinker on air. His thinking is so progressive that there's no words for it. I have thoughts so deep, there's no words. Are you there? Well, he dropped off. Robert, that's your basic name right there. Right? If you're shopping for names, you don't want anything too crazy. You don't want to be called Zerubbabel. You don't want to be Nebuchadnezzar. You want something a little more basic. You're probably going to go with a Robert model. What's up, Robert?
Hey, Jay. Happy birthday. Many years.
Thank you. It's not my birthday, but we're going to act like it is so I can grift.
Well, I tuned in a couple weeks ago with a question with a book by, it's called I think it's the Invention of Peter.
The Demokopoulos book?
Yeah, by Demokopoulos.
Uh-huh.
If I have his name. In the introduction, I noticed that he uses, he explains discourse analysis, and I think he utilizes it throughout the book to give to structure his arguments, I suppose. But you know, from my understanding of Foucault, is that he's kind of like a precursor to critical theory. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I would think that the Frankfurt School critical theorists would find commonality with Foucault. I remember Foucault coming up in my critical theory class. It's been 10 years since I had those classes, but that sounds like there would be commonality, just going from memory. So what? How does Foucault? I'm not questioning you. I'm just trying to remember. How does that relate to what you're saying with Democopoulos? Are you saying he's basically using some kind of like postmodern linguistic analysis or something to, or what? Remind me. I just got that book. I haven't read it yet. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I could read it. That's exactly what I'm proposing. I haven't gotten through the whole book because I deviated and started reading Two Paths, and I just finished that. Yeah. And then I got into St. Basil. So, but from what I did read, and through which was interesting to me prior to reading the book, was just having heard of Foucault. If I'm not saying it right, I want to say it. Yeah. And so he, from what I understand about him, postmodernism is like kind of like a correlation or like some sort of connection that I've always made with him, and only in like recent times. But what he writes in the
he's definitely says,
in the archaeology of knowledge, Foucault offered an alternative model for study of the past, not by emphasizing the particular events or actors of history, seeking in them a continuity or discontinuity which comes before or after, but by exploring the conditions that unite what he called a collection of discursive events. And he also talks about knowledge structures and how this discourse entails more than words and text. It also involves actions, intuitions, and rituals. What I think is happening in this book is that the papacy, the various popes, were using this the Petrine theology, or in order to use it at particular times when it was useful for them.
Yeah, right.
And
then, by the way, I just remembered. Let me say something, because I just remembered this. So now I remember. Yeah. So there's one of the most important books of critical theory is Horkheimer and Adorno's Dialectic of the Enlightenment. And one of the things that they do is they point out that originally Enlightenment philosophy was about the worship of reason, and it was really trying to deconstruct all mythologies. And so the critique that Horkheimer and Adorno have is that the Enlightenment became its own mythology. And so it set up this new myth of human reason and the total rationality and quantification of reality. And they're saying that has to now be critiqued. And that's precisely what Foucault, as sort of the arch postmodernist, would say, is that everything is really just new mythologies. And so I'm guessing that, based on what you're saying, Democopoulos is basically just appropriating that postmodern style of reading invented mythologies and whatnot, as the Petrine office is kind of this own self-perpetuating mythology and myth generator.
That makes a lot of sense.
And a lot of those people in the academic a lot of those people in the academic circles are all influenced by postmodernism and deconstructionism. So they don't actually think texts have meanings. Like nobody can know the meaning of a text. It's all just constructed. It's kind of like the way the people believe everything is a social construct. Well, they just do the same thing with language and books. Oh, it's what you read into the book. Everything is just reading into it. You don't actually know anything about what the author intended or what the meaning of the book is. And ultimately, it's an attack on meaning. But the postmodernists are actually useful in debunking Enlightenment mythologies, not because their position is true, but in the same way that we would use David Hume as a kind of apologetic toolkit person to debunk bad classical foundationalist type arguments. In the same way, you can actually use the arguments of critical theory or postmodernism or deconstructionism to debunk Enlightenment mythologies, but they're also self-debunking. So I'm not advocating for postmodernism.
I understand, and it's becoming more evident that neither is Democopoulos. It's just that, like you say, he's probably using it in a very probably deep way.
Well, he's not an Orthodox person.
I mean, you have difficulty grasping. But
yeah, but he's a Fordham person who is like super liberal. So
Oh, I did. Okay.
But I mean, the Fordham University.
Question, Jay. So I mean.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Not at the moment. I think I'm good for now. I appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, remember, so that's people from Fordham, and Fordham is, of course, the Jesuit Eastern Orthodox academic thing that is really a front and a cutout for U.S. foreign policy operations and all of that, which is evident now, everything that's going on in the Ukraine. A lot of that's fostered by Fordhamites, people like this. By the way, I talked about that for how long? How many years did I talk about this kind of stuff? And now it's all open. Everybody in the Orthodox world can see that this goes on. And I've talked about this for, 8-9 years. We got a new dude, Modern Thinker. He's back. Modern Thinker, what's up, bro? You're on air.
Right.
Hey, man.
Hey, so I don't know if you already talked about this already, so forgive me if you did, but what were your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on Project Diffuse and this whole Darpa leak? How damning do you see this, and is this pretty much the Holy Grail?
Is this what came out today? Are you talking about?
Yeah, the Project Veritas leak. I'm starting to read the actual report, but it's pretty insane.
Yeah, well, so probably on YouTube, that's not really something I could go deep into, but I would say I listened to both the PV analysis, and I listened to Lord Voldemort's analysis today, and yeah, it sounds like I mean, it's obviously what we already knew, because this is just one other side of the government, right, admitting what was already known, and yeah, I mean.
Right.
But so tonight's topic is debating God, Catholicism, Protestantism, atheism, or Islam. Do you have anything on that topic?
I do not. Thank
That's
you.
okay, no problem. Yo, bro. Hey, dude, we are the debate God, bro. What happened? We just had somebody popped up and then they ran off. What's up, dude? You want to speak? Come back, Conrad. You can have the floor. You don't have to run away. I will give you the mic. You can make your mama jokes. Make fun of my mama too. All right, he's back. He's got a battle rap full of mama jokes he's about to unload on me, make me cry. Conrad is in the house. What's up, Conrad? No, Constantine. I'm sorry.
I was the one that turned my mic off just because I didn't have a question about God. It was a different topic, so I didn't want to derail the chat.
That's okay. My bad. We got some other people here. Who's this here? All right. Mary Rose. That is a very feminine name. Mary Rose. What's up? You can have the floor. You're on the air.
My turn?
Yes, ma'am. If you're Mary Rose.
All right. Sorry, my speaker keeps cutting in and out, so I have to read the captions.
That's okay.
So I had a question about Scripture, and, there's all these passages that modern textual critics will say weren't original to the text, and I was just wondering, what's the Orthodox position on the preservation of the Scriptures? What, body of texts do we appeal to that has been preserved by the Church along those lines?
Right. So the Orthodox view is, at least as I understand it, expressed in all the Church Fathers 100% consistently, is that, generally speaking, the Scriptures are inerrant and they are infallible and they do not contain errors. Now, that's distinct from copyist errors. And so there are, in the transmission of the text over various centuries, times when monastic people would be copying and they would make a typo or something like that. So these are well known. And really, I think that the best way to understand this is that the perfect text would be the autographa. That's the ones that Paul himself wrote, right? But nobody has any autographa. And so this is why Orthodoxy and it would be the same for Roman Catholics. I mean, both Orthodox and Roman Catholic tradition don't believe in sola scriptura, so we're not going to have like those Muslim and Protestant type KJV only type arguments where we're looking for a perfect preserved version of a written text. And that's partly because we inevitably have to rely on the transmission and authority and power of the church to preserve the text and to hand down through the church's authority copies of the text that are valid, that are authoritative. So for the Old Testament, the Orthodox Church, it's normative that we use the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament. That's mostly what the apostles cite in the New Testament. But there's not a perfect version of the Old Testament per se, because even in the New Testament, some of the gospel texts like Matthew, even they still cite Masoretic texts or proto-Masoretic texts because they wanted to use the text that his audience considered authoritative. So if Matthew's writing for a primarily Jewish and not Gentile audience, then he's going to be citing not the Septuagint, but what would be called or what would become proto-Masoretic texts that Jews later accept. So the simple answer is that, I mean, generally speaking, the Bible is inspired, infallible, authoritative, but it's not like the Muslims think that the Quran is, or the way that KJV onlyists believe that the 1611 King James Bible is. So it can't be separated from the tradition of the church.
Right. So we would rely then on the tradition.
Well, everybody relies on the tradition, so there's no escaping it. In other words, there's no, whether you're a Protestant. I mean, if you look at the 1611 King James, I mean, that's relying on a bunch of Anglican translators and the King of England. And what independent fundamentalist Baptist believes in kings or monarchs? And by the way, the original 1611 King James included the Deuterocanon, the Apocrypha. So they don't believe that. So it's all just silly and arbitrary if you're meaning like in an evangelical kind of Protestant sense. But
right. I was more wondering about like the specific passages of, well, I think it's 1 John 5:7 and the woman caught in adultery.
Yeah, so if you go listen to,
there was one other one.
If you go listen to the interview that I did with James Snap, who's a New Testament scholar, and he's a big fan of the Byzantine text, and so that's the traditional New Testament text for the Orthodox. So you could go look at that, and you could see that he makes an argument that the woman caught in adultery should be there. I think the 1 John 5 text is a later addition, so it probably shouldn't be there. Yeah. So, but it's James Snapp, S-N-A-P-P, and then it's me and him talking, and he has some really good insights and information about the New Testament in that regard.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll look it up.
Sure. Thank you. There's also a good book called Rebooting the Bible by Woodward, and I don't think that guy's Orthodox, but he basically makes a bunch of Orthodox arguments and relies upon a bunch of Orthodox tradition to write that book. So it's really good. Rebooting the Bible by Woodward. Welcome everybody. We're having fun tonight. We got a nice 330 people over on YouTube. We got, 40, 50, 55 over here on the tweet. And let's see who's next. Ben Jackson. It's another one of your kind of simple names, right? You don't want a crazy name. You don't want to be called Methuselah. Then you probably want something like a Ben Jackson style of name. It's a more kind of just your basic, your starter pack for a name. What's up, Ben?
Yeah, Ben Jackson. Ben Jackson's a pretty good name. I'm happy with it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll give you that.
I always thought my name sounded like the secret identity of a superhero.
Yeah, or some other kind of founding father, like a lesser known founding father who was like a super into Freemasonry, more than Benjamin Franklin, like Ben Jackson.
Like Benjamin Franklin's illegitimate nephew or something.
There you go. Yes.
Did you know that Ben Franklin was the only president of the United States who was never hold the office of President of the United States?
No, it sounds like a setup. It sounds like a setup for a joke.
About creation, specifically the fall. I'm a little bit confused. Because from listening to you, what I've been able to come to understand is that the correct Orthodox patristic understanding of that is that there was no death prior to the fall. Is that correct?
I believe that is the most consistent position. There are some people who will hold to forms of theistic evolution, and they will have various ways to interpret Genesis and different approaches. But
I was raised.
Hold
sorry,
on.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was raised as a theistic evolutionist, Orthodox Christian.
Right. So let me make just one point, and then I'll let you speak. The reason that I don't accept that position, well, there's multiple reasons, but the main reasons are that I think Romans 8 is very clear that all death, both spiritual and physical, is a result of Adam's sin, and that is the cosmic explanation for death, and that Christ's redemption is just as cosmic in scope as Adam's sin, and that would thus include both physical and spiritual death. So the theistic evolution attempt to sort of divide, put a fissure between physical death and spiritual death is contrary to the Orthodox doctrine of the death of Christ. It's not separate. They're both healed in the same redemptive action. And there's a canon of Trollo that says that you can't affirm that there was death before the fall or that death is natural. And then there is the 4-page condemnation of Origenism, which is part of the Confession of St. Sophronius, accepted at the Sixth Council, which basically forbids Origen's allegorical reading of Genesis and Eden.
No, I certainly don't believe in or anything that Origen taught. Well, Jay, I think you're right that human beings were not meant to die, and that was a result of the fall. What I'm confused about is that my understanding is that human beings were created before, animals were created before human beings. And also I can see that animals have a lot of physical attributes designed for predatory behavior. So that would seem to indicate that they were made and designed to kill one another. So I'm sort of confused about that. How were they able to eat each other before the fall?
Okay, right. So if you read the book Genesis, Creation, Early Man, this actually comes up in a couple sections where I think he deals with this in a really good way. And one thing that's overlooked in treatments of the fall that don't look at the cosmic scope is that when the fall happened, it was actually pretty radical in terms of the change in how things operated in the natural world. So the fall isn't just a thing where we just experience a kind of a moral change in our being, and now we're subject to decay and corruption. If you read Romans 8, the fall affected the metaphysics of the whole created order. And if you look at the way the fathers exegete the text where it says that God made for Adam and Eve skins, so he kills an animal and he makes for them skins, that's the change that puts us into this sort of lower corruptible biological state, which is vastly different from the prelapsarian state. So the whole metaphysics of the universe changed, and that would include animals as well.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, Jay. I really appreciate that. One more quick question, if I may. Does that mean that in the eschaton, when animals don't reproduce sexually and nobody dies and there's no disease or death, there will still be animals and not only human beings?
Absolutely. I mean, the text in the famous Messianic text that we just read for Nativity, Isaiah 11, talks about the eschatological removal of the predator-prey relationship. Okay, thanks a lot, Jay. That I've been trying to figure that out for a few months. No, it's okay. So I think that Father Seraphim Rose's Genesis, Creation, Early Man does really well treating that question. And if you want a more modern theological treatment from an Orthodox theologian on what it means when God created skins for Adam and Eve, the book Deification in Christ by Panagiotis Nellis, the first two chapters covers this very question. Deification in Christ. Yeah, by Panagiotis Nellis. The first two chapters is answering the questions that you're asking tonight. Perfect. Okay, I'll try to get that book. Thank you, Jay. Yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate the questions. Really good questions. What's up, Jack? Jack is in the house. Also, another. We got a little just simple name people tonight. Not that the people are simple. Those are great people. But these are people who just want to have just a name, man. Just call me Jack. Just call me Ben.
Yeah, just call me Jack, brother. I just had one quick thing to say and then one quick question, Jay.
Yo.
I think you should do another video or an entire video doing your Mark Zuckerberg impression. It's got to be the best one that I've heard among the Ortho Bros so far, so keep up the good work with that.
Thanks, Jack. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. And I can't wait to see you in the metaverse. It's going to be great.
I'll get in my coon pod and I'll ask a question.
Hey, it's not a coon pod. It's your dreams come true. Calling it a coon pod is really just hate speech.
My question, if I can ask Mark, is if the tripartite, the Trinity, doesn't undermine the singular nature of God, could it logically be the case that there could be, a fourth person in the Godhead or a fifth, and yet there still be one God? Why? How would you say, how does the Trinity not undermine the unity of God? And how couldn't there be a fourth or a fifth or an infinite number of people to the Godhead while still being a single Christian God?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, that comes up a lot in issues relating to debates with Muslims, debates with, other religions that are Unitarian. And there's different ways to answer and approach this question. So one I would say is that the reason that we believe in the Trinity isn't primarily based on like philosophical speculations, but it's based on revelation and the totality of the metaphysic and the philosophy that comes from revelation. So Orthodox Christian, Trinitarianism, and metaphysics all goes together. So it presents a kind of a big grand scheme worldview that's grounded in a specific type of deity, which is triune. And it's unique in that way because most of the world religions are either a kind of Unitarianism or a kind of monism or a kind of dualism or a dyad. And so you could see this in Plato or Aristotle. Plato could be an example of a kind of primal monad or monistic type of religion or worldview where everything is basically one thing, the one, the monad. Plato calls it God. And it's the supreme simplicity or unity. Aristotle's God is a dyad who's an eternal mover of something other than himself, which for Aristotle is the created order. So there's the mover and the moved thing, the created order, and this dyad is I'm going to mute you because I'm not trying to be rude, but so I can because there's a lot of background stuff there. So Basil has a really good critique of dyad in Hexameron 2, why Aristotle's dyad doesn't work and it's self-refuting. Because basically we get trapped in a kind of eternal duality that makes good and evil, time and change, unity and multiplicity in dialectical tension and the opposites of one another. So any philosophy that relies on dialectics ends up in this canceling out program or problem when it comes to knowledge and when it comes to how to ground metaphysics or how to explain reality. Likewise, Platonism can dissolve into a kind of everything is one thing, idealism, and idealism can also fall over into dualism. So, for example, Plato has the problem of making the realm of the forms relate to the here and the now. So there's a dialectical opposition between perfect stasis, unity, and changelessness, and that's an opposition. That's the opposite of time, flux, and particularity, which is this realm, this world. And those things can't be bridged because they're opposite. There's nothing to bridge the gap between the timeless, the unchanging, the eternal, and the here and the now and the flux. And so Plato had to say, I guess reincarnation. That was his answer to how to bridge this gap. Pure Unitarianism and pure dyad or dualism are untenable worldviews for multiple reasons. And so what Trinitarian theology offers is that there's a principally fundamentally unique metaphysic and approach to reality that you get when, as St. Gregory Nazianzus and St. Maximus say, the triad surpasses the dyad. So if you wanted a metaphysical or philosophical type of argument, you could make that argument from Gregory Nazianzus and Maximus that a absolute that is not just one in many, but principally both the source of unity and in multiplicity in terms of personhood, that God has a real existence, communion, and love and relation prior to the existence of the created order, right? So there's love, there's glory, there's attributes and communion that God has without creation. And the problem with the Unitarian conceptions is, and that's unique to Trinitarian theology, by the way, because there's no such thing as a dyad, right? That is a perfect union or communion. A dyad is a distinction by opposition. But Trinity is unique because it's no longer opposition. There's a perfect union on the basis of the third, which is the Spirit. So in number philosophy, 1, 2, and 3 are the first three numbers that all other numbers could be reduced to them, right? So, for example, if you had a fourth, why would there not be a fourth person? Well, a fourth would reduce back to a dyad. You would have 2 and 2. And likewise, the other successive numbers would reduce back down to dyads or something other than triad. And so that's why 1, 2, and then 3 is unique just in terms of number philosophy or number theory. And you could read Losky's book, Mystical Theology of the Eastern Church. In the chapter on the Trinity, he actually goes into this argument and makes this point. Staniloy makes a point like this in Experience of God, Volume 1. I am Andreev, who's has a little book, Orthodox Apologetics. He has a whole chapter on the Trinity where he makes this same point. So Trinity and creation ex nihilo are fundamentally unique doctrines that 99.9% of the world religions don't share. And that's what I'm getting at, is that you don't have these necessitarian concepts that enter into Unitarianism where God doesn't experience or have these powers or attributes like love or like power or like anything until he creates the world. Because if God's just a bare unity, like a lonely Unitarian deity for, before the creation of the world, then there's not communion, there's not the reality of love or the notion of self-giving to the other until there's the created order. And likewise, there's no relation. God doesn't have any relation until he creates. And in most of those systems, they end up making the created order necessary in some way. But what's unique to the Trinity is that without the created order, you have all of these things that are and would be the case and were the case before creation. Namely, that God has unity and distinction and communion in the intra-Trinitarian life from all eternity. And he has those powers and those attributes in reality and in relation without creatures. Now, creatures come to be so that God can share those powers and those glories and those attributes with us, those energies. But the created order is not what the energies are dependent on. God has those energies, what St. Gregory Palamas calls the natural energies, from all eternity, even if he had not created. That doesn't mean that the energies that relate to the created order are unnatural. There's just Palamas's term for the energies that pertain to or are the case from about God from all eternity. So, but great questions. But I did multiple streams where we get into. I think when I did the stream on transcendental argument and the Trinity, we went into this question as well about why Trinity and not Unitarian God or dyad or 4, 5, 6. But remember, the first and main reason is that it's revealed in Scripture and in tradition that there is, even in the Old Testament, the Trinity is everywhere in the Old Testament. And remember what Trent said. There's no Trinity in the Old Testament. They didn't believe in the Trinity. He thinks that's a thing that, Nicaea made up or something. Let's go to Jack. Or is this the same Jack? Did you want to speak again?
Thanks for that answer, Joe. I really appreciate that. Just one last quick one, if
Sure.
I could ask. I'm in a sort of, Catholic circle, trad Cath circle. All my friends are Catholics. They don't know I'm kind of inquiring into Orthodoxy.
Okay.
What would be you've probably said this a million times before, so forgive me. What would be the kind of, I'm not very intelligent, bit of a based retard. What would be the kind of shortest, sweetest, sort of most insightful, incisive, anti-Catholic, pro-Orthodox argument I could just spit out and then they couldn't really come back from, if you can shine a light on that?
Well, one thing that I think is just the easiest to point to is that Vatican I says that the Roman See cannot err in any of its teachings on faith and morals. It does not say that the Roman See cannot err only when it's, quote, ex cathedra. It says that it cannot err in its teachings at all. So the Roman See is indefectible. But how do we reconcile that with all of the outrageous actions of Francis? I mean, that to me is the clearest testament to the fact that, the papacy doctrine isn't true. In the last 8 years, you have complete contradictions. If you wanted a real easy document to point to, go to Mortalium Animos of Pius XI, and that's an encyclical that he wrote that anyone who participates in world religions or in interfaith gatherings who's a Catholic is surrendering the Catholic faith. They're an apostate. And from 1928, when he wrote that, up into the 1960s, when Vatican II happens and Vatican II affirms all of these interfaith gatherings and ecumenism, it's the exact opposite of what. So something was apostasy in 1928, and then by the 1960s becomes the work of the Holy Spirit. If that's not a change, I don't know what is.
Okay, I mean, I did actually see a video Michael Lofton wrote about your misunderstanding of the ordinary magisterium. I don't know if that was recent. I don't know if you did a response.
But it wouldn't matter because it doesn't. Well, number one, he basically just uses a term to try to talk his way out of what Vatican I says about the ordinary teaching, right? But it misses the point, because whether it's the extraordinary universal magisterium or the ordinary magisterium, the ordinary teaching, you still are supposed to submit, according to Satis Cognitum and according to the documents of Vatican I themselves, you're supposed to submit just even to the ordinary teaching with docility. So even if you think that the Pope has erred in terms of his ordinary teaching, it doesn't matter because you still have to submit to it. But none of that even addresses the fact that I'm making a stronger argument, which is that the papacy has erred in its actual ordinary teaching and magisterial teaching. I mean, Vatican II's Nostra Aetate says that Hindus can approach God through love in their religion. And that is the direct opposite of what Mortalium Animos says. So what's necessary for Lofton and these people to do is to say that, well, all of these pre-Vatican II encyclicals and Syllabus of Errors, Morari Vos, all of these things, we have a better understanding now. That's not really the case anymore, because anybody who reads those documents and then looks at Vatican II and something like Fratelli Tutti could obviously see that those are two different things. I mean, look at religious liberty, right? I mean, religious liberty is called a heresy in those documents. Now it's a fundamental doctrine of Catholic moral theology. And we know who pushed these things through. John Courtney Murray, Jacques Maritain. These are all, quote, liberals who pushed through things that were condemned by the Holy Office, a few decades earlier. So him deflecting into these stupid nuances and trying to debate the terms relating to what is the different distinctions in the different magisterial documents really is a deflection from the fact that the Vatican II documents are dogmatic, and they are the opposite of multiple pre-Vatican II documents.
Thanks a lot, Jay. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, did you have anything specific about that, or is that it? Like, have you read? Do you know what Mortalium Animos is? Have you read that one?
I do know it vaguely, superficially, but not in any kind of great detail. It was just, I was wondering if you'd seen any of the, his response to that. By the way, do you really think that he invented that other Orthodox Twitter account to pat himself on the back, or was that just a bit of a meme?
Well, whether he invented it or not, I don't know. I mean, it could be his circles. I mean, he's got 4 or 5 henchmen that easily could have done it with him. But no, I don't think it's a stretch given his previous underhanded activities that he would do something like that at all.
Fair enough. I'm not too familiar with the Twitter beef, and I just wanted to ask a quick question on that. But yeah.
Well, we know for a fact that the profile is fake because we contacted the priest, and it's not his profile. Does that prove that it was Lofton's profile? No, but for the last 6 months, there have been a consistent stream of profiles popping up who are obviously fake profiles of converts from Orthodoxy to Roman Catholicism. And they're obviously not real because they're invented literally that week or that month. They have no tweets other than tweeting about how awesome Michael Lofton is and how dumb I am and how obviously true Roman Catholicism is over against Orthodoxy. I mean, they're obviously fake profiles. Anybody can go see that they're fake. It's all in David's video. So just go watch David the Real Mad White's video if you don't know the beef. But it's just another instance of 3 years of stuff that this guy does that's underhanded. So he says that it's all us. We're all so mean. No, we just think that dude's a lolcow. We just laugh at that dude. And that's why he was so butthurt that he had to threaten a lawsuit, that he was going to sue me for Twitter comments. Come on, dude. It's an absolute joke.
Fair enough. Thanks for answering. And shout out to Lomas Longstrider. Love you, man.
All right. Let's see. All we have is now wants to talk again. It's all the same dudes. All we have is now. Dun, da, 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 da. All we have is now. Now. What's up? All we have is now. I thought it was funny. So Albrecht said that everybody in the Discord is fake. Like the whole Discord that we have, they're all fake. Nobody has converted to Orthodoxy. It's all fake. Right. So.
Oh, hello, Jay.
What's up, dude?
Happy birthday, man.
Thank you. It's not my birthday. Today is Grift Day. It's my Grift Day. But thank you for that.
You gotta make the money. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about, did you have any kind of opinion on Jesus's life pre-ministry? Is there anything either in Scripture or in your understanding relating to that time?
No. I mean, I think that there's probably reasons why in divine providence that he, that we weren't told what was going on in the years before his ministry. But I don't believe in any of the like Gnostic fables or any of these crazy stories. I mean, the church, rejects all that kind of stuff. So, no, I don't really have any opinion on that other than what's in Scripture.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't. Do you have a point about what makes you ask that?
I think I have a different opinion to you theologically. Just in the sense that, for me, orientation to God is based on morality and your understanding and insight into reality through insight. So I think it's possible for someone to have no understanding of Scripture or to have seen any particular Bible or doctrine, but the way they carry themselves in their world has more bearing on their salvation, shall we say?
Well, I mean, we believe that infants can be saved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, salvation is not like a knowledge, like you just stack up the facts that you know. But I mean, there is a degree of knowledge which is necessary for people who are of age. But I mean, even we wouldn't say that like you're saved by Bible knowledge, although Bible knowledge can contribute to salvation. So, what do you mean by? I don't remember the words you used, but what did you say? Inner knowledge? What did you say?
So confession time. I used to be a Buddhist monk, and the kind of underpinning of the particular style of Buddhism I studied was was called insight. So it's just the idea that you observe reality moment to moment. You break it down into its constituent parts, and that is, I suppose, it ties into the idea of gnosis. So it's the idea that you see your shadow, your ego, your ignorance, and through observation, so it's the kind of direct apprehension of reality, that is salvific, in the sense that you overcome your ignorance.
Okay, so one question I would have is, and you're the first Buddhist that has ever even asked a question, so I have to confess that I have really just a cursory knowledge of Buddhism and the different traditions. I'm not well studied in it, but my initial question or critique would be, it seems to me that those, really all the Far Eastern religions kind of rely on an absolute that is basically impersonal. And the problem with an impersonal absolute would be that reality basically becomes either meaningless, nihilistic, or an illusion. And I'm just concerned that if we went that route, then it seems like knowledge would become impossible, or we would fall into the situation that a lot of Far Eastern religions do, which is that knowledge is fundamentally contradictory. Is that what you would say?
I think Buddhism, I mean, there's different types of Buddhism, but
right.
My understanding is that they appear nihilistic and impersonal, but I think that was just an inbuilt mechanism to avoid the excesses of what they were trying to replace, which was kind of early Hindu kind of traditions that fell into kind of idol worship and kind of attachments to rule and ritual. So people would just kind of, painting themselves blue and going to temples and things and thinking that was accessing divinity. And I think that the context of the Buddha's time is that he saw the dangers of that. So he very much kind of strayed away from any personification or deification. And I think his thing was, well, have a look and see for yourself. I'm not going to tell you what you're going to find, but if you follow my instruction and my suggestion, then you find out what that is for yourself. And so you hear of Buddhist monks and people that have followed the tradition that attain realizations, and in their words, I don't hear their words as they're not kind of saying, oh, it's just a void and there's nothing there and it's cold and selfless, and they're often full of great compassion and wisdom. But I do see why people get that idea, but I think that, like I say, goes back to the historical context of the Buddhist time.
Okay, let me give an example of a question that would be more precise. So do you think that the world that's out there, that reality, do you think it's fundamentally teleological or dysteleological? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah. I think there's an instinctive nature to. I don't know if you're aware of Bernardo Kastrup?
No.
Do you know this guy? Okay. I think the closest analogy would be someone like Schopenhauer.
Okay.
Do you know about Schopenhauer?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know
world as will and representation.
The idea of the will, which is kind of quite instinctive. It's quite kind of it's not really teleological in the Christian sense. It's kind of like a striving, searching God or presence that's kind of fumbling around, and through humanity it kind of awakes to itself. But it's not that kind of, you were saying earlier about with the Trinity, it's certainly not that kind of pre-existing attributes and qualities that are there before creation. So there's definitely it's definitely
so you're saying that
in contrast to that. So
God is a kind of process. He's in process philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot or be mean, but how do you know that? How do you know that to be the case?
Well, I think that this goes to the kind of another split in ideologies. So I think in Buddhism and Eastern traditions, God is your consciousness. It's you introspect, and in your own awareness, you find that's your knowledge into God. It's the mystical approach. It's through introspection and personal insight.
So God is literally identical to my own consciousness?
Yeah, your kind of like your naked awareness, your ability to know, to perceive.
Okay.
That's your Bible in a way, for if you want to use that analogy.
Okay.
That you find what God is through knowing yourself.
Okay, is God identical to your consciousness as well?
Well, in the Buddhist sense, there isn't a self, so there's no I, there's no kind of me individual. There is the universal consciousness that we all are. So I wouldn't kind of claim that as for me as an individual. I think to the extent that I access it, I access you and everyone else. Okay,
but you said everyone else. That would presuppose that there are other beings. Well, it's the dissociation. So this is the kind of I mentioned Bernardo Kastrup. So he speaks about dissociated self. So there's a unitary self, but it's a bit like DID, like dissociative disorders. Okay, that's the analogy he uses. So it's a self that partitions through a process that's analogous to DID. Mm-hmm. So if you're in this world interacting with me and other people, and the selves that are you're saying are basically fractured versions of the one, don't you see that this would fall into the same problems I was mentioning about Platonism earlier? Because we aren't the super self. How do you know that there is a super self? It's a kind of Cartesian thing. I think it's this idea that if I deny everything else, what can I not deny? What's the one thing that rests? But you know that any content of consciousness is consciousness itself. You know that the cogito is in multiple ways fallacious, right? Yeah, the way it's interpreted in different ways by different people, isn't it? Well, the way that it's stated by Descartes is fallacious, objectively speaking, right? I mean, in other words, to say that I think, therefore I exist is, number one, a non sequitur. The fact that there's thinking occurring doesn't actually give you metaphysical content. And also it assumes things that have not been questioned, like time determination. So if Descartes says there's an occurrence or occurring, that presupposes time determination. But that was something that was supposed to be questioned, right? But he didn't. It also presupposes linguistic philosophy, which Descartes didn't question at that time either. So my point is just simply that I don't understand Buddhism the way you do or as deep as you do, but what I hear from you seems to, again, just sort of echo metaphysical problems that I was outlining earlier in relationship to Platonism or to dualism. So any dualistic philosophy is going to have a problem of relating the things that are totally transcendent or non-dualistic to the realm of the here and the now, which is the opposite of that stuff. And so how do you know that there's a super self or a super consciousness if you only interact with the flux changing illusory consciousnesses that are fractured in the here and the now? Well, I don't, do I? I kind of through. Okay, so there's not. You don't have a way to know that God is identical to the process of consciousness. Yeah, but I could say the same thing to you. How do you know there's this transcendent deity, loving deity
that's kind of overseeing everything. It's
Well,
the
I
same
would make a
sort of
transcendental.
argument,
I would
isn't it?
make a transcendental argument and subject the worldview to the same critique that I'm subjecting your worldview to, and that is the argument, transcendental argument.
Sorry, say that again. You cut out for a bit.
I would make the transcendental argument, which is what I'm critiquing, what I'm doing with your position, critiquing it to look for its grounding and its foundations to see if it can make sense of knowledge, epistemology, right, ethics, and metaphysics.
Yeah.
And you know, Christian metaphysics makes sense because there is a personal God who creates the world. The world has purpose. There are real distinctions in beings. The world is an illusion. We're not fractured parts of the one. So I avoid the problems of Platonism, and I don't see how what you're saying avoids the basic problems of Platonism.
Okay. Yeah. I think we went a little off course when we were talking about Descartes because I didn't. My interpretation of Descartes or that idea is it's not I think therefore I am. It's I am therefore I am. So what is aware of the thought? What is aware of anything?
Well, that's not what Descartes says. I mean, you agree. He says, "I think, therefore I am." Right?
Yeah, that's the. I'm by the way, I'm not appealing to him to back my argument up. I think I'm more critiquing him, if anything. But the Buddhist understanding of what he was trying. It's more about what he was trying to do, right? He was trying to strip away everything that he knew and come to some sort of base, some baseline. And his error in a way was to kind of, partly because of his Enlightenment inheritance, I think his error was to identify with thought. Whereas in Eastern tradition, I think what we would be thinking is, well, what's aware of the thought? What's before thinking? And the baseline, the Buddha's baseline, 2,000 years before Descartes was to comprehend that awareness preceded thought, and that there was something. The baseline was pure awareness.
Okay. How do you know that ultimate reality is pure awareness? On what basis do you know this?
Because it's the only thing I can doubt. Everything else I can even doubt my own thinking. I can doubt all my perceptions, but I can't doubt that there is knowing, or there is a capacity to know. Okay. I can't doubt that.
When you say, this is a version of a Descartes type of argument, so I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's related. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Do you not understand?
Related, it's not identical.
Do you not understand that proposition assumes all kinds of metaphysical things? It assumes that language has meaning.
Well, everything does. Anything you can say does.
Your goal was to strip away all the things that you think you know. And I'm saying that the same way that I critique Descartes' cogito, you haven't actually done that. So you're still assuming multiple things that are metaphysically the case, epistemically the case, linguistically the case. So you haven't actually done what you said you were going to do.
Okay.
So it doesn't function as an argument to prove the metaphysical claim that ultimate reality is consciousness in process.
Yeah, I agree. The other
okay,
thing
well then it doesn't function as an argument.
This is my caveat: is that I cannot convince anyone or prove anything using language. I think that this is the other difference with Eastern religions, is that you can go away onto a mountaintop, and where you can come to answers, whereas maybe in Western Christian tradition it's more about it's something that can be codified and shared with language, and that's not my understanding.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat back this sentence. I'm not trying to be mean to you. Don't get your feelings hurt.
Okay.
It's an honest question. You said, I cannot convince or prove anything with language. Does that sentence itself use language and attempt to prove anything?
No.
Okay, it does. That's a sentence, and it is making an argument. It's making a claim.
it's claiming the limitations of my of language.
Yeah, but it's self-refuting because it's a sentence that's attempting to convince or argue something using language.
Yeah.
Okay, so your fundamental argument is self-refuting, using language to try to make an argument that language can't prove anything.
Yeah, you're right.
So
you're right.
Buddhism doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I suppose it's it goes back to that idea of the God and the will, or this idea of this kind of searching, kind of slightly questing source of everything that's trying to work itself out. It doesn't have that certainty.
So hold on. So when you say when you say will, when you say consciousness, when you say searching, working itself out, these are all metaphysical claims. And the point of let's strip all that away and boil it down to basics philosophy, which is what I'm fine with doing, questioning it all the way down to the basic assumptions. Those are all things that you haven't questioned, because those are metaphysical claims. And if we're going to make these grand metaphysical claims, we're going to have to start from the basics and build up to that. But we haven't got any place to even set our foot down. We need something to start with.
Right. Yeah.
But hey, good questions, dude. I'm not trying to, make you feel bad or put you on the spot. Good questions.
No.
But that would be my critique of that approach. So that would be why I think Christianity is a better way to ground metaphysics, ethics, and epistemology. But thanks, dude. Good questions.
Yeah. Cheers, man. Bye.
Yeah, dude. Let's see who is next. So, hey, first time we've had somebody espousing Buddhist types of arguments. Glad to have that. Glad to hear it. We've had a lot of people say, when are you going to critique Buddhism? Hey, never had a Buddhist even say anything. So there we go. Michael Burke, what's up, dude? How you doing? It's another just a good name, Michael. Archangel name.
Well, it's actually my friend's account. I'm just using it to ask you this question. So
okay.
But I'll pass it on to him.
Wait, you were using it to ask the question, but you're passing it on to him.
I will pass on your compliments of his name. He will appreciate
it. Gotcha. Okay, my bad.
So anyway, I didn't really come to debate. I'm a traditional Catholic, but I had a question that I wanted to get your perspective on.
Sure.
But before I ask that question, I guess it might not be yes or no, but do you think Catholicism is irredeemable, or is it irreconcilable because of the errors of Vatican I and the contradictions that resulted from that? Or do you think that the course could be corrected if there was some revisions to those doctrines?
Well, the problem with the Roman Catholic system is that it's a system, and it dogmatizes things that can't be reversed or revised. So if the papacy in Rome were to revise dogmas or doctrines, it would no longer be Roman Catholicism. It would be something else. And I mean, I would argue that it's already kind of been doing that. I don't think that the Roman Catholic system as a organization is able to, quote, reform to orthodoxy. I think that because we've had, 1,000 years or 800 years or so of dogmas that are proclaimed that are contrary to Orthodox theology. If you want an example of this, there's a book by Metropolitan Seraphim of Piraeus, which it's actually a letter, but it's a small book that he wrote to Pope Francis. And it's when Francis was elected, and you could just look up Metropolitan Seraphim of Piraeus' letter to Pope Francis. And it's basically a list of 34 to 36 problems that would have to be resolved before there could be any kind of, quote, reunion. But the reunion would really be a conversion to Orthodoxy. So that could potentially be hammered out if 34 to 36 things were resolved. But I don't see that happening anytime soon, given the direction that the papacy is going. So I mean, there's certainly a lot of similarities, for example, between traditional Catholicism and Western Rite Orthodoxy. So a lot of people who convert from, the Latin Mass or the SSPX, they go into Western Rite Orthodoxy because they're so used to, attending the Latin Mass or whatever, and that's fine. But as for the organization of the papacy and all of that, I don't think that it's in any way able to be reintegrated. It's just the differences are so vast after the last 800 years, and there would be so many things that would have to be revised that just seems really unrealistic.
Right. So you're mentioning, I had never heard of Western Rite Orthodoxy, but you're mentioning that kind of leads into my main question, which is comes from a Spenglerian kind of perspective. And it's not really a critique of orthodoxy, but let me just explain the question and get your perspective on it.
Okay.
So Spengler views, world history, his metaphysical view of it is that cultures have a specific soul, and that soul expresses itself through its art forms, its architecture. Its
I've read him. Yeah.
Right. So maybe just explain for the audience.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
I guess the critique or question I have is, if orthodoxy from a Spenglerian perspective is specific to the East and Catholicism is specific to the soul of the West, do you think it's unrealistic, at least in that worldview, to expect orthodoxy to catch on, to appeal to the soul of Western man like Catholicism would? And the reason I asked about whether or not Catholicism was redeemable or not in your eyes is, if you did think that Catholicism was more appealing to the Western soul naturally, and you thought Catholicism was redeemable, it would make more sense to focus your energies on the redemption of Catholicism.
So I think
given your answer, I have a feeling, what your stance on that is. But yeah, if you want to give your input on that.
Sure. So I would say that, first of all, I would reject the premise from the outset that Roman Catholicism is fundamentally, quote, Western, and Orthodox Christianity is, quote, Eastern, precisely because these delineations are in ways not correct in terms of the first 1,000 years of Christianity. So, for example, if we go back to the first 1,000 years of Christianity, if you were in the 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th centuries and somebody used the word Roman and Catholic, most people in the Christian world would think that you were talking about Byzantium. They would think that you were talking about the Romioi, or the Greek Constantinople center of Christianity. That's because most Christians were in Constantinople and they were Greek speaking. The majority of the theologians, all of the councils, right? That's not to say that the Patriarch of Rome didn't have an important role or that he wasn't Orthodox for many, many, many centuries, but that Roman Catholic didn't mean what we think it means until, dude, are you just like ripping farts? What's going on here?
I have a baby in my arms. I'm sorry.
Are you doing fart noises with the baby's armpit? I mean, that's okay. That's fine. It's okay. Every time we get a Catholic on, they just rip farts. Like that Byzantine dude came on, and he was like literally just ripping farts in the middle of the debate. But that's okay. It's okay.
Goodness.
It's okay.
I apologize.
It's okay, dude. It just makes the stream more interesting. Anyway, so the Romioi are the Eastern Roman Catholics, or anything Catholic would be in terms of the ecumene, the Orthodox Empire, and Roman would be Constantinople, the Romioi. So that's one misunderstanding, and most of when modern Roman Catholics think of the history of the Church or the Catholic Church, they typically are thinking of the Franco-Papal Church. So the church really divides, or begins to divide, under Charlemagne and under the Franks. And that's when the Latin church goes in its own unique direction. And that's when you get like the getting rid of paedo communion. That's when you get the change in the creed. That's when you get no longer having married priests, which prior to that were common in East and the West. All those things were common in the East and the West. But the church in the West, after Charlemagne, begins to go in a uniquely different direction. And that's even backed up by modern Catholic theologians and historians like Szyszynski, who vindicates the whole Frankish thesis in his book on the Filioque. So the point is that I would reject, first of all, the modern Roman Catholic reading of history that characterizes the East and West in that way. Second, I would say that Spangler's philosophy of history suffers from any critique that I would give of Germanic idealist approaches to things. And whether it's Hegel, whether it's Fichte, whether it's Schelling, whether it's Marx, or whether it's Spangler, I think that those people are insightful, and there's similarities between those guys' view of history and what we could say is an Orthodox philosophy of history. But the Orthodox philosophy of history is what's in Daniel. If you want a philosophy of history, read the book of Daniel. Don't go to a pagan secular philosopher like Spangler, because although Spangler has a lot of insights, Spangler believes everything is fundamentally historically bound. There is no universal truth. Spangler is fundamentally kind of a cultural relativist, and he would reject the idea that there's a universal logos. He would say that anything like logos is fundamentally encapsulated in the Hellenic mind. There is no universal logos. There is no universal religion. So even in terms of Roman Catholicism, Spangler doesn't work as a good. You can't combine Catholicism, quote unquote, with Spangler because
I agree, and he is a relativist, and he has a whole part in part 2 of his work where
right.
I mean it's heresy after heresy after heresy. So he's not reconcilable with Christianity, but much like you use the Kantian transcendental idea
this is a misunderstanding. So there is no transcendental argument for God in Kant. Kant uses transcendental arguments, but never Kant would say there's no such thing as a transcendental argument for God. It's impossible. So two totally different things, and we out of hand reject the Enlightenment philosophy of Kant because it's transcendental idealism, and that's also impossible with Orthodox Christianity.
Right, but what I was getting at was, while the broader implications of what Spangler believes is not reconcilable with Christianity, like you were saying, he has insights to that are valuable.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And to your first point about Catholicism being centered in Byzantium up to the time of Charlemagne and
mm-hmm.
Frankish
right.
religiosity,
the Franco-Papal Church.
Itself.
Yeah.
Spangler says that the Western soul doesn't really come into its own or start to come into its own around the year 1000. So that actually corresponds with what you're saying in Western Christianity starting to express itself in Catholicism and
right.
the iconography changing, the
right.
music.
Right.
So that to me is indicative of Catholicism.
Well, okay, so but he thinks
unique expression of Western civilization on Christianity.
But hold on. So
okay,
because you mentioned that you weren't familiar with the Western Rite. I mean, Orthodox Christianity believes that everything that was going on in terms of Western liturgical practice in the West for the first 1,000 years is fine. And so that's why there are, both amongst the Antiochians and amongst the Russian Orthodox, many, many churches that do the Latin Mass. They do the traditional Western Rite. And so the argument there would be that our view is that Orthodox Christianity is the original Western Christianity, not papalism. Let me give you an example. 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 Okay. The Church of France consistently, prior to Charlemagne, saw itself as autocephalous. So French Christianity is fundamentally Orthodox, and that's why, for example, in France, even after papalism, all the way up until the Society of St. Pius X, you have the tradition of Gallicanism. Gallicanism is the holdover of the autocephalous Orthodox Church of France.
So when would you say that papalism came on the scene. Obviously, it was before Vatican I.
Well, it's an evolving thing, right? So, I mean, you get an evolving of doctrines like, the forgeries that give the Bishop of Rome temporal supremacy, supposedly over all the monarchs. And so the action of crowning Charlemagne, for example, is an expression of the Pope basically saying that I am the one that, there was already an Orthodox Christian emperor. And so his action of doing that is basically his way of saying that I'm actually now superior to all state authorities, and any state authority that comes to be must now go through me. That was backed up by the donation of Constantine, which is a known forgery. So the very actions of, Pope Leo doing that is an action that contributes to the schism. The unilateral actions of the papacy in the early Middle Ages also contribute to it. So it's like an evolving thing. There's not like one thing that makes it, this is the, world historical point when it becomes papalism. It's an evolving thing. There's many things that occur.
Right. But you're saying papalism is fundamentally incompatible with orthodoxy?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know you've addressed this point, I think, in other Catholic debates that I haven't listened to, but there isn't an arrangement where the Pope becomes a kind of head of a church, like a patriarch in Orthodoxy, and didn't that relationship exist at one point where the Pope was? When all the churches were in communion, he was just kind of another patriarch.
Correct. He was the Patriarch of Rome, and he was the first among equals in the councils with canonical privileges. And the councils consistently say in the canons that the privileges that Rome has are canonical. They're not divine. They're through canon law. He is first in the church. That doesn't equate to the claims that evolve in the second millennium mainly, in regards to what will eventually be solidified at Vatican I. But again, the problem is that we can't ignore the last 800, 1,000 years. Rome has had multiple ecumenical councils and dogmatized multiple things that could never be accepted in Orthodoxy. The Filioque, right?
So, could you tell me what that document was again that was sent to Francis on how the two churches could be reconciled? And would you say that it is exhaustive? Would you say that's a good comprehensive list, or would you think it would be bigger?
No, it's pretty exhaustive, and he's really just reflecting the older medieval Byzantine lists, which would just list the errors of the West that the East couldn't accept. And it's Metropolitan Seraphim of Piraeus, and it's his letter to Pope Francis, and it's about an 80-page, just kind of almost a small book, where he details not just theological, but also historical and geopolitical problems of the Vatican. He brings up the Vatican Bank. He brings up all the, basically the statism of the Vatican trying to be a secular state. He brings up, the espionage problems with the PEDO problems, all of that stuff. And then he lists the 30, I can't remember, I'm just going from memory. It's either 34 or 36 theological problems that would have to be resolved between East and West.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to look into that, and I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions.
No problem, dude.
I apologize again for my baby's flatulence.
No, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, great questions, and it was a great civil discussion.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, man. Anytime. All right. See, what do you mean? What do you mean we're mean to Roman Catholics, dude? So the last time we did open forum spaces, we had Roman Catholics coming on. We had great chats for like 2-3 hours. So the idea that we're not mean to everybody. We just don't take a bunch of baloney and put up with a bunch of nonsense. And if you don't come with baloney and nonsense, hey, you get totally fair treatment. You get to talk as long as you want. You can talk about whatever you want, make whatever arguments. So again, just proving the fact that we're not mean to Roman Catholics. We don't treat them in some evil way. What's up to Go Boy Esau? What's up? We'll take a couple more questions, and then Jamie's hungry, so we gotta go get her some dinner.
Hello?
Hey.
Hey, am I coming in okay, or am I farting too?
I haven't heard any farts, but I hear your voice.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Orthodox, so I'll try to hold my gas and not make this look too bad.
Okay. Silent but deadly, dude.
Okay. So I got a question about aerial toll houses.
Okay.
Do you view this as necessarily part of Orthodox doctrine?
I do think that it is part of Orthodox doctrine due to its prevalence in the liturgy and in many writings of the saints. So it may not be mentioned explicitly at an ecumenical council, which is chiefly what we think of when we think of dogma. But there's other things that in a way are part of the Orthodox heritage or tradition that aren't dogmatized at a council, right? I mean, the life of a saint is part of the experience and revelation of the church, even though it's not, quote, dogma. And so there are things that we're not told a lot about, like the next life or the afterlife, where we look to iconography or where we look to readings in the liturgy or the lives of the saints that would help illumine those areas. And so I agree that we don't know everything about how this works, but the basics of the aerial toll house is ultimately part of Orthodox theology, I believe, yes.
Okay, so it's part of it, because what I see constantly happening is this back and forth about not whether or not that it exists, but more of its necessity and like, you know, whether or not, because a lot of the times it is sort of nebulous how people are describing how that works.
Sure.
You know, we get sort of like a peek, a basic outline of what it is. My question was more geared towards the necessity of holding these things so we're basically taught that living the ascetic life in accordance with doctrine, you know, the cleansing of our nous, just living in a way that will get us on the right path towards, you know, going to heaven, basically. So, like, the consequence of not holding to the arguments, whatever they might be, of the toll houses, like, what's the, you know, basically the necessity of holding on to the belief itself, if that makes any sense.
I would say that rather than approaching Orthodox theology from the vantage point, as I'm not saying you're doing this, but I did this for a while when I was like Roman Catholic looking into Orthodoxy. You kind of want like, where's the list of the things that I have to believe? And, you know, there's not a Denzinger for Roman Catholicism. And even Roman Catholicism doesn't operate that way, although it claims and thinks it operates that way. I would just say that I wouldn't even approach the question from, do I have to believe this or not? I would approach it from, what does the tradition of the church have to teach me? And once I quit worrying about what I have to believe and don't have to believe and just approached it from that vantage point, to me, it became a lot clearer. You know, I read the Father Seraphim Rose book years ago, maybe 8 years ago. And then there's the St. Anthony's Monastery book, which is like the big fat 800-page book, Defense of the Toll Houses. So if you want the full argumentation, I would say you could read those texts. But I would just not worry about it and just say, you know, I'm happy to submit to, you know, the traditional experience and life of the church and not worry about like where's the absolute list of the things that I have to believe? Because I'm not saying you're bad. I'm just saying that's a very kind of Western mindset of, you know, where's the list of the dogmas?
Right. Well, I am coming out of Roman Catholicism, and paganism, and all the other cringe things that, you know, people go through before they eventually find Orthodoxy. But that was just one of those things that I noticed constantly cropping up, and people trying to explain it, and people trying to, you know, whether defend against it or whatnot. Yeah. And my whole thing was just about like, you know, what's like, you know, what's the utility in me either holding or rejecting this? And if you're saying that it's kind of like superfluous in that sense because Orthodox teaching is giving you, you know, the way in which you should be living in order to attain salvation, then this ultimately would just be something for us to fight about when there's nothing else to fight about.
No, I'm saying that when we have the right attitude, it will be the things that we don't understand become clear to us, and God reveals us and providentially brings the right book into our hands. He brings the right person into our lives that gives us the right argument. I've seen this literally like dozens of times. Anytime I have a problem or an issue or a question in the last several years, if I'm patient, if I wait, if I trust God, the answer eventually arises, and it's, you know, trusting in God's providence. So I would say to you that, again, just trust in the teaching of the church and trust that this will be made clear to you, and you will eventually see why it is the case. It's not going to be proven by, you know, where is the citation in Denzinger that tells me I have to believe this. Just relax and accept the teaching of the church. Don't worry about it, because not everything is going to be listed in the what's the boiled down thing I have to believe. It just, Orthodoxy just doesn't work that way. It's not like, there are dogmas, but it's not. You know, there's not just the list somewhere. And even though Rome claims to have that, it doesn't actually have that, because there's no list of the infallible teachings. It's just up to whoever, you know, better read all the stuff, bro. Hope you interpret it all right. But anyway, I got to go, dude. Thanks for that question. We're going to end this, and thank you guys there. Let's get through these super chats real quick here. Because I have got to watch The Notebook and Reagan on repeat, and then we're going to do an all-night marathon of radio. So, Sponge Bomb Israel Pants for $3. What's up? Serious $3. You should debate Darth Sidious on Catholicism. Don't know who Darth Sidious is. Chloe Walked. Anybody who wants to debate the topics, we open the Discord all the time, every week. We open Twitter Spaces every week. If any of these people who love to debate, want to debate, they can easily come do it. And most of them are like, you owe me a debate on your YouTube channel. You owe it to... No, I don't owe you anything. Especially if you're a dude with 200 followers. I don't owe you anything. Kristen, $3. My husband's birthday. He's also JD. Am I married to you, Kristen? And I didn't know that. Sorry, Jamie. I'm already married to somebody. Chloe Walked, $5. Happy birthday. Thank you. It's not exactly my birthday, but we'll say it is. Serious, $2. The essence energy distinction solves the resemblance analogy dilemma. Correct. With absolute divine simplicity, you either remove transcendence by predicating analogies to the divine essence, right, which is Thomism, or you make God meaningless by saying that analogies can't be predicated at all to God, and that would be like Islam, right? God bears absolutely no similarity to creatures in any sense. Vladimir, $10. Happy upcoming birthday. Thank you. Exactly. Thank you for what you do. You are a singular Renaissance man. We know about how a lot of them Renaissance boys, them Renaissance boys was up to stuff. Keeping being you. Love the jokes that you do. Vlad KGB. P.S. I sold all my Bitcoin to send this. Hey, people freaking out, dude. Bitcoin dumps a lot, and you know he's got poo-poo problems. He dumps. He's like the babies farting on the stream tonight. But he always comes back. He bounces back. And again, people get caught up in the day-to-day, dude. Don't get caught up in the day-to-day. Bitcoin is a long-term hold, right? Where's Bitcoin going to be in 5 to 10 years? That's the point. Not what's it going to do next week. Stellwagon, $5. Your preacher hair and uncanny insight remind me of the great Peter Popoff. Well, he is, of course, one of the great grifters. So I guess on the birthday grift episode tonight, we have to give a shout out to Peter Popoff. Chalk gave me gas. By the way, Chalk is not going to give you gas. Chalk is Bays and Awesome, and they are our sponsor. And if you want to get Bays supplements that will put you into the next meta dimension of manliness, go to chalk.com right now. Put in the promo code J60, and you still get 60% off. The boys over at Chalk said, hey, we don't know how long that discount is going to be there. It might go away this week. So take advantage of that. There's stacks for men and for women. I took the ashwagandha this morning because I wanted to have that straight up clarity and focus. I wanted to have that I wanted to reset those dopamine receptors, and the ashwagandha is, that's something that works for that, because I've had so much pleasure and fun in my life, and I've done basically everything, defeated all the bosses, that the dopamine receptors don't work. So I'm using ashwagandha to reset my dopamine receptors, and it feels great. I'm having a dopamine euphoric rush. I am euphoric right now in talking to you, beloved people. So I do not accept your name. Chalk gives me gas. Chalk will not give you gas. In mystical theology, Lasky says, in two perfect persons, the person of Christ and the person of the Mother of God is contained in the mystery of the church. Can we say that Theotokos is a perfect person? What do we say about the other saints? Yes, the Theotokos is the new Eve, and so she, by grace, succeeded where Eve failed. And so she is the perfect person. She's the icon of Israel. She is the icon of the saints, the icon of the church. And she, by grace, is the spotless virgin. What can we say about the other saints? Well, the other saints committed actual sins and are still saved by grace. We don't believe that the Theotokos committed actual sin, though she was preserved from that, even though she was born under ancestral sin as a son of Adam, and that's why she died. That's why there's the Dormition, which means that there's no Immaculate Conception. Jabby, $3,005. What are your thoughts about Sabbateans? It's a satanic sect that proposed a false Messiah. What else can we say about that? Chalk gave me gas, $1. Happy birthday. Chalk will not give you gas, but thank you for the happy birthday. I sent $30. 8 years ago, you interviewed a guy about his Anatomizing Divinity book. Great interview. Will you be interviewing him again? No, there's not any planned interview in any time in the future. That was a good interview. He and I have pretty significant disagreements, so I doubt there will be any interviews in the near future. But thank you for that comment. Fart Lamange, my favorite emperor. I know Jamie agrees over there. I know you're probably a fan of Charlemagne, but what can I say? Especially after tonight's stream, the reward goes to Fart Lamange instead of Charlemagne. I mean, the Roman Catholics, man, I think they drink so much. Catholics drink a lot, and that's why they're having the gut issues. And that's why every time a Catholic comes on, there's all this gas, right? Like the Byzantine guy who came to debate and farted on the stream. And now we got babies farting on streams. It's just madness in here. Fart Lemaine, $5. I'm a Gnostic. I agree that Catholicism got worse with Charlemagne, and even worse after the collapse of the Holy Roman Empire. But I think Orthodoxy is guilty of trying to take control over councils after the collapse of Rome. Rome didn't control the councils. So if you mean the Pope didn't control councils. The emperors and the bishops ran those councils from the East. They're all Eastern. And so controlling councils, I mean, if you read Acts 15, the apostles have a council and they produce a statement. And the basic form of government in the Orthodox Church is local councils. Chalk fixed my gas. There we go. $1. Do a stream with Sam Hyde. Actually, I was talking to him the other day about doing something, and there is maybe something gurgling in the works, something kind of gurgling down in the lower bowels of the internet to produce some new gas, a new chemical mixture, perhaps, with Sam Hyde, but we will see in the near future. Or Paul Joseph Watson. I've never talked to Paul Joseph Watson. I think it would be cool to do a discussion if he's open to that, but he's never reached out. We've never interacted. I like Paul Watson. I don't have anything against him. I think he's a fun, insightful commentator. But yeah, we had